Welcome back to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Our mission is to share what we have learned from our experience and the experience of others to help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate the Discount Property Investor way. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Mike, it's good to see you back, brother. Haven't podcast with you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Dave, we said we were going to do it more. And man, I'll tell you what, we're just keeping busy doing the business of real estate. And neither one of us, makes the time to reach out and be like, Dave, Mike, we got to get in the freaking studio. We got to record. So we're doing it remote just because it's important to us, and I'm glad we're doing it. And we are again, it's been on our mind. It's been our effort to get together and record. So again, we're going to be doing more of them, and I'm happy to do it because again, it's something I've done for a long time with you.
Oh yeah,
and even prior to that, and I really do. I just like talking and share my thoughts sometimes, and yeah, it's good. So I'm very, very happy to be recording and kind of sharing, I guess, our insights into what's going on. In the current market. I know we've all just say, oh, it's crazy. And that is true, but there's still plenty to do in business. And that's something that I really like. It's kind of like a perspective thing. A lot of people are like, oh man, the market's so hot. Like I would never want to be buying rentals right now. Oh man, the market's so hot. I don't want to flip anything because like, what if it turns and I get stuck with it? Oh man, the market's so hot. I'll never find a good wholesale deal. Well, okay. That's one way to look at it, right, Dave? Here's the other way to look at it. Here's the other way. Go ahead and do nothing. And you're exactly where you were right now. Go ahead and do nothing. That's fine too.
Man,
but again, that's not where
powerful language right there.
Right. That's not where I want to be. That's not where I want to be.
I don't want to be in the same place either, man. I totally agree.
Even if you go 100 miles an hour and you learn a ton about real estate and the market corrects and you get stuck holding the bag on one or two properties, I mean, that's all part of this real estate game. Like no one can predict the stock market. No one knows what's going on with crypto. I mean, you and I both know that. I mean, it's up and down. It's crazy. And I truly don't believe anyone can predict this real estate market or cycle or when it's going to turn with, laser pinpoint accuracy. So the only option is, again, in my opinion, just keep taking action towards your goals. Do what is working. Do what other people know is working. And again, just keep making progress on your goals. So that's kind of what we're doing. We in our business, I think we're pretty candid with everything we've done. We built a massive portfolio of rentals together, and then we sold off a bunch because again, we were buying out a partner and we had a little bit of debt. So, we cleared that out. Now we're doing it again in our rental business.
Now we're doing it again. That's
it's
right.
It's not something again that I'm super, super excited about that the market's so hot right now, but it really has only felt like that to me for the past, this year, 2021. Is the only time I've really felt like it's a hot market. Like I don't know when you felt like things were getting heated. I mean, I think it was just this year though.
Yeah, I think so too. But even through the winter though, usually so we don't really have much of a dip in the winter with the investing.
Right.
But I felt like even through the winter, the inventory was low. It's taken us more marketing dollars to find a deal over the last 12 months. But I agree. We've really, really felt the impact the hardest over the last 6. So it hasn't really felt that bad, in terms of getting deals. But
and I guess that's true because
we weren't a deal right now, man.
Yeah, up until the end of last year, we were still kind of in sell mode. Now we're back into buy mode. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really see it. I'm more, Dave really focuses on leading our wholesale side. I focus more on leading our rental, our acquisition side. So yeah, and that's really, I really, really felt it. And it really was a squeeze, and that's the squeeze we're in. But we're still, again, 100 miles an hour trying to build a rental or rebuild a rental portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully by the end of the summer, I'd say by the end of August, that gives us about 5.5 weeks. I would think we'd be back to 60, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're basically at a little over 50 doors, all together, like when we count all of our rental properties.
Yeah, but under contract to be added, it's got to be another 5 or 6. And there's probably another 3 or 4 that are in
pipeline.
In the pipeline too.
Right.
So
Right. No, I think we'll be 60 by the end of the summer. It would be really cool if we could buy another like big package and get to that 100 by the end of the year. But dude, that's 5 months away, and I just don't know that we're gonna have the capacity unless we find a sweet package to pick up. So
yeah, no, you know what? I think would make for a good topic just for a few minutes here is buy box. And the reason that I want to talk about that is we have 23 units under contract right now
mhm.
on one parcel, right?
Oh, that's right.
That would be amazing to just add to the portfolio, but it's not in our buy box. And the buy box for Mike and I is, typically somewhere within 20 to 30 minutes of our office. Um, and it really doesn't necessarily matter the price range, but it has to have a good return on investment. Either it has to be at the 1% rule, or we got to be able to buy it at 70 to 80% to be able to BRRRR it. And this particular 23 unit building that we have under contract right now, it's an hour and a half south. So, not that I don't want to buy it. I think it's actually a really, really good deal. But we don't have a property manager that can cover it, right? So we'd have to get a new property manager. And there's new, basically challenges that arise with having properties spread out all over and then having to manage multiple property managers and whatnot. So buy box, guys, figure out your buy box when you're going to be investing. If you're starting off wholesaling, then anything and everything will work. And that's what we're doing with this particular deal is we contracted it because it was a good deal. But then when it comes time to figure out what we're going to do with it on the dispo side or the other side of things, it doesn't fit the buy box. So just resort to wholesaling.
Yeah, it's a great analogy or way to look at it is calling it the buy box. I like that. A lot of people, it's like, what's your buying criteria is the most common question that we get, as buy and hold guys. And yeah, it's kind of difficult to define because for Dave, it's really like he just said, he'll buy anything that's a good deal, even if it's 2 hours away and it's outside of what he was referring to as our buy box. Like he's not necessarily going to say no to a smoking deal. Why would you? Again, so that little apartment building, I wish we could keep it. I'm in the same mindset. Like that's a great one.
Mm.
It's underperforming because the current owners are they're very kind and they actually built this from the ground up and they just haven't done a lot of rehab to it. They've done a lot of maintenance to it, so it's in good shape. But man, it would be sweet if we could go in there, rip out the kitchens and baths, and then up the rents 100, 150 a unit, uh, charge you tenants utilities, and shoot, we'd have a huge return on it. Like
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing, but like Dave said, since it's an hour and a half south, we don't have one, the property manager, but two, then to make our crew or to find a crew down there to actually do that work for us would be another undertaking. And when we're managing new crews, we got to keep a little bit closer eye on them, so it just doesn't work for us, unfortunately. Even though it is a great deal, so we're going to sell it, and I think it's going to be a great one. So our buy box, what are
It'll
our
be a 6-figure wholesale. So we're going to be doing good on it regardless, Mike.
yeah. No tears for us, please. No tears for us.
That's right.
So the buy box. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about what we buy, Dave. We again, it's really anything that meets our criteria. And like Dave said, it's either that 80% or something that hits that 1% rule. And we're really
1%
looking.
rule is basically, just a simple rule, guys. It basically states that you're going to collect 1% in rent. So whatever the number is to purchase, and typically it's not just a purchase. We like to look at it as like, what's our all-in number? If we can buy something for 90 grand and put 20 in it, that's 110. 1% of 110 is 1100. So are you able to buy it and be all in and then collect 1% of the rent? So at 1100, if you have a loan at 110, that typically means that you're going to have a decent amount of cash flow. So that means what's left over of that 1100 after you pay your taxes and your insurance, and you factor in maintenance, and you factor in capex, and you factor in your management, and then you also factor in your vacancy. It pretty much guarantees you what is it, Mike? Maybe $200 a month, $150
Yeah.
a month.
Well, and it
Not a
depends on if
ton.
It
But
depends if you use what you're into it for versus the ARV or what the value of the property is. Because we'll even use like the actual value of the property. So if we're into it for 110, let's say it appraises at like 140, we really want to see that rent around 1,400 a month, as opposed to the 1,100. But again, 1%, super quick, simple thing to use. 1,100 to 1,400 on rent on something like that, and you're going to make those cash flow numbers that you need to make. So yeah, it's not a ton, especially on the higher price of the property. We found it gets even skinnier, like the 150, because your loan gets higher and your expenses just get higher when something happens to a property. It needs a little bit more work. Your vacancies take a bigger hit. If I've got an $800 mortgage on a property that's renting for 1,200 or 1,400 versus a $500 mortgage, when I have that vacancy running, I am out a significantly higher percent or higher number of dollars than I am if it's only a $500 mortgage. Like, again, that's an actual cost plus the time to turn it plus yada yada. So over a 3-month period, say it's vacant for 2 to 3 months during a turnover. I mean, you've got significant costs that can add up pretty quickly. So again, the more expensive the property, it just costs more. The holding cost is more when it's not rented. The mortgage is more. So it just gets thinner and thinner. But back to our buy box, a little bit more about that and what we're specifically looking for.
1% rules in the buy box.
It is there, baby. 1% rule. We hammered that one home. Super important.
Yeah, what
It's
else
gotta be
though?
there.
I don't like one bedrooms. Let's talk about what we exclude. That's probably easier, right?
Absolutely.
So we exclude one bedrooms, guys. We exclude properties that need more work than the purchase. So if you buy a house for 40 but it needs 60, right? And that puts you in at 100, why not buy one at 90 that needs 10? Like, it's just so much easier, right? So we typically exclude the one bedrooms. We typically exclude properties that need more work than the purchase price.
And Dave and I were just talking about that, though, because that is a super, super good one. And I love that because I'm on the rental side and I do a little bit of the rehab and the management of it. But we're buying properties now that need more work because we can't find those 90,000
so
and we
that's
need
so
5 or
true.
10. So
Need
again, you're
more
getting
work than
squeezed.
typical, but we still try to find that line though, right?
Right.
Well, we cross the line occasionally, of course, depending on the area of town that we're in. But rule of thumb: don't buy a $100,000 property that needs 150. Look at it that way. When you get into bigger numbers, whew.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's a really good way to look at it. Even though you're doing a rehab, you don't want to do a full gut on a rental project necessarily.
Why would you if you can find something else that's easier that makes just as much money?
Exactly. And if you're going to do that level of work, I mean, quite frankly, it might make a better flip than a rental because again, you're basically rebuilding a house. So why not execute on it and get that full retail and cash out and buy a different one for rental? But again, everyone has different strategies. So back to you,
Also,
Dave.
like to exclude small properties.
This is the big one for me.
So like 600 square feet or less. It's like you can't convert a one bedroom into a 2-bedroom at 600 square foot without the bedrooms being extremely small. Can you do it? Yeah, of course, but you're going to have like closet-sized bedrooms. That's hard to keep rented. You might be able to rent it, but you're typically not going to have somebody that's going to stay there for 4 to 6 years. Like they can get a bigger place for equal money. Because when you have a 600 square foot house, you're still dealing with roof maintenance and HVAC maintenance and all of the maintenance that you would have on a 1,500 square foot house or a 2,000 square foot house. Your maintenance isn't any cheaper necessarily because it's only 600 square feet. Roofs still leak and air conditioners still break and water heaters rust out and die.
So let's talk about the flip side.
A ton of maintenance on these small properties in relation to percentages. So
what about a 25 or 3,000 square foot house, Dave?
So, that's a great point. Like there's a range. So when you're dealing with a 3,000 square foot house, hopefully you'll get 3,000 a month in rent. But if you don't, you're already breaking the 1% rule. And then when it comes time to turn that property, that's a lot of square footage to cover with new flooring and or new paint. So turning that property is not going to be, 6, 8, $1,200. It might be 4, 5, or 6,000, depending on how much work is needed.
Yeah,
You
even
know,
just painting it's going to be several thousand.
right?
So it's definitely, there's a sweet spot, and I would say that we look for smaller end. I mean, we're looking for around 1,000, give or take a few hundred square foot would be our target, or is in our buy box, our sweet spot. The number of bedrooms we don't put as much weight on if the square footage is within the correct number, because we'll convert old dining rooms, if there's a second dining area, into bedrooms, to maybe make that two bed a three bed. If it was a two bedroom, 1,100 square foot house, well, there's plenty of room in there to add a third bedroom, and it's not going to be tiny. It's going to be just fine.
And we've done that
So again,
a bunch of times.
yeah, so our buy box is probably between, I would say the sweet spot is really closer to 800 square foot to maybe 1,500 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Target right around 1,000 though is really what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that hits on what is our number of bed and bath requirements. We don't like one beds. I think you mentioned that. So really, two beds are okay, but a three bed is our preferred, 3+,
Three
and
plus, right?
it's pretty hard to find. I mean, anything more than 4 bedrooms.
Yep.
We do have that sweet one that you put in our contract, Dave. I'm looking forward to it if we can get that thing figured out up on Jerry's.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big
it's a
one.
5 bedroom and
Right.
massive. So that'll be pretty good. What
Yep.
else, Dave?
I would say like area of town matters as well too. We'll buy A, B, and C. We try to avoid anything below a C. Now, are we buying a ton of A's? No. Let's be honest. Just because it's hard to get a
Mm-mm.
great deal that can cash flow, that doesn't need crazy amounts of work, but we'll come across them from time to time. The majority of the rentals that we're buying are probably in the B and the C class areas. But even in the C class areas, you're typically not having crazy amounts of crime. You're also having school districts that are, you know, on the okay to good side. They're not like terrible, right? So neighborhood, type of neighborhood, I think definitely matters. There's some neighborhoods in St. Louis, like for example, Castle Point, where I would never want to own a rental. Will we buy something to flip there? Well, sure, because we can pick it up for 2 or 3 grand in some cases, and sell it for 8 or 10 or 15, and make a couple $1,000 real quick. But that area, that part of town, just isn't ideal for a tenant. You're going to have a ton of issues with just it being dangerous, right? And that's a ton of liability. So I think neighborhood definitely matters. Um, Also, I think like type of property will matter too. Like are you buying a single family home, or are you looking at a weird two unit building that may have an off building, right? Like sometimes if it's too weird, we may avoid that type of thing, right? In terms of roofs, it doesn't really matter if it's a pitched roof or a flat roof. Here in St. Louis, we have a lot of old buildings when you're in the city limits, and we own a
Mhm.
few of those as well. So that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but personally, I like a pitched roof because you can easily inspect it, you can see what's going on, and often you can add square footage or have attic space when you have a pitched roof. Um, I think distance is typically going to be, you know, the main one, obviously, right behind type and square footage and cost, of course. But that's the reason why this 23 units that we have is out of the buy box, is just because it's too far away. If it was half the distance, we'd probably buy it and keep it. But it's just too far away too. So there's a lot
Here's
of
a,
things that you have to factor in.
and here's another one that we don't often deal with, but they are out there, especially in the South County area more often than not, is septic systems. So we prefer all of our rentals be on city sewer,
And water.
because exactly, in wells. That's a good point. For
Mhm.
this reason, it's just easier to maintain. There's almost nothing you have to do besides getting that thing cabled out if it gets clogged up, or replacing the pipe if it cracked. If you're on your own septic system, not only are you going to have to do that if it gets clogged, but if the septic system cracks or fails, you have to replace the septic system. And last I checked, it was, I don't know, it was like $20,000 or something to dig
Yeah,
out and
what is a
replace the entire
septic
septic.
system? About 20K?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've really looked into it, but yeah, they're not cheap. Again, you have to dig out the thing. You've got to feed. I don't even really understand all of it. It's just, yeah, we try to avoid them. So when we do get them, more often than not, we'll try to flip that property for that reason, because it just is an unknown cost, or kind of like a ticking time bomb. Could go bad at any point. Tenants aren't necessarily aware of it, or they don't care. Like, again, if you tell them, hey, this is a septic system, make sure you do this. Well, tenants hardly even change the air filters in your HVACs. Well, let alone can you expect them to really maintain a septic system and use the, what is it, like Ridex or whatever you're supposed to put down there every so often. So again, it's just another thing that pushes it further out of our buy box.
Yeah, wells versus city water or county water, right? If you're on like like this infrastructure water system that it's pumping a decent PSI 24/7, 365 versus a well. Wells can go dry. Wells can have issues as well. Typically, wells don't have the best water pressure. I mean, I guess it depends on the system that you have. But Mike, that's a great point. City water and city sewer or city sanitation is a big thing, right? Will
Yeah.
you buy outside of them having them? Yes, but ideally our buy box is having both of those. Great point. Something I wasn't even thinking about, but it just goes to show you that there's a lot of little things to consider.
Yeah. So let's recap it real quick and then maybe wrap up. And I
got
think this will be the buy box episode. So what is in our buy box for our rental portfolio? I think it was first and foremost was the 1% rule, which encompasses the price and the rent. It kind of combines those things. So 1% of the value of the property, you should see that being collected as the rent each month. That's a really good way to look at that 1% rule. Dave, what's next?
I would say like distance, size.
Yeah, so location. Location includes that distance. It includes that there's some areas we don't like, some areas we do. So real estate, location, right? You can't get around it, even in our rental buy box. So we've got the 1%.
If you don't want to go too small, you don't want to go too big, right? So
Yep.
that's probably next.
So buy box, location, size, and then
area,
what was the last?
Like
area.
A, B, C, or D. Stay out of the war zones. Probably not going to find a ton of great 1% or even 1.5%, which we have as well in some of our portfolio, in the A zones, right? It's just probably not going to happen. And then last but not least, more specifics on the property. Does the property need more work than the purchase price? Doesn't mean you might not want to do that deal, but you can do a similar deal and make just as much typically, whenever you're encountering that kind of thing. And then last but not least, I would say just details about the property, like its systems. Are its systems hooked up to the city and county infrastructure? Or are you out in the country where you're dealing on your own water from a well or your own sewer from a, what's it called? Septic tank.
Yeah.
Which has a drainage field, and there's lots of things that can go wrong.
So, Dave, it's so funny. We try to recap, and we both do this all the time. It's like, so you're talking about the systems, and I'm just thinking, well, wait a minute. What about the electric system, too? That's another one. So obviously that comes into condition of the property, but there's one kind of big red flag, and that still is the knob and tube wiring.
Good point.
Or the older electric panels, the Federal Pacifics. So those two things, they're not going to push it out of a buy box. But knob and tube wiring can be dangerous, can be a fire hazard, so we really don't necessarily want that. And the Federal Pacifics, we can replace the panel, but it just factors in as well.
Factors into the cost, though, right? If it's a property that needs all new electric and it may need all new plumbing, well, that may push it over the line to be something that may cost more than the purchase, depending on the neighborhood. So
exactly.
There's lots of things that kind of can reflect on that. So, Mike, great conversation. The buy box, guys. Know your own buy box, right? Know what you're looking for. Really, I think the whole point of having a buy box at the end of the day is to have a plan. Don't just get out there and just buy something, right? And then later just, figure out, oh man, I probably shouldn't have done this because of this or because of this. It's just smart to educate yourself, and buy in places that are going to make you comfortable, but also in places that, are really more defined as investments versus just speculation.
Dave, let's do another episode, guys. On the next episode, let's talk about how to get yourself ready to buy rentals. I know we have a lot of new investors. So, Dave, thank you everyone for listening. The next episode, we're going to record it. We'll talk about getting yourself ready to buy rentals.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. Signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thank you in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.